we had our first round predictions during all of the first round series. We picked all of our predictions for winners and in which amount of games, and we were a hella wrong on a lot of these.
Let me put you on game.
Yeah, it is. It's been really great to see fans in the building again. It's been a whole different atmosphere as far as the playoffs go. We got
Yeah.
some housekeeping to do for you guys that are following along with us. We had our first round predictions during all of the first round series. We picked all of our predictions for winners and in which amount of games, and we were a hella wrong on a lot of these. I am ahead by 1 point.
Okay.
I have 3, and you have 2 out of 8 matchups. So we're gonna keep that moving. There were a lot of different surprises in each different series, particularly in some series that we're going to discuss going forward. There were a lot of interesting matchups, though. A lot of series kind of went in a completely different direction than I thought they were going to go. Even with Heat Bucks, we both had the Bucks winning in 6, but they absolutely trounced the Heat in 4.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, Milwaukee won by the series by a total of 82 points. The Heat had no answer. The only close game was game 1. Went into overtime. Milwaukee, eked out a victory by 2 points. But from that point on, there was it wasn't even it was barely a competition. Giannis defended Butler primarily during the series, and Butler only scored 14.5 points. Milwaukee out-rebounded Miami 236 to 169. And you had guys like Brian Forbes and Portis shooting 48 and 46% from 3 respectively. So it was a series that I definitely didn't see coming that way. But the Bucks showed like, hey, we are here and we are here to play, and we're done playing around with the league, to me.
Yeah, for sure. They're a completely different team from last year. There was a lot of noise about Giannis being Defensive Player of the Year, but not defending Jimmy Butler down the stretch. And I think he kind of took that personally, even though he never let on that was a personal thing. And he definitely took on that challenge. And Jimmy had a uncharacteristically bad playoff series. Like you said, he averaged 14 a game, but he shot 29% from the field.
Yeah.
And then you had a lot of guys that shot the lights out in the bubble, but in this year's playoffs weren't as good. And Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson were both really stark examples of that. Tyler Hero, 9 points a game on 31% shooting. Duncan Robinson, 10 points a game on 37% from 3 and from the field. So it was just rough. But the Bucks have done a great job of making these additions. And along with those additions, Giannis he's actually gotten better as a player. His numbers don't necessarily indicate it because his numbers were ridiculous last year, but he's diversifying his game. He's posting up more. He's more of a confident shooter. But yeah, just looking at Miami, like we all thought that they were going to kind of get it together before the end of the season. And they just weren't able to put it together. So I just wonder what they do going forward. But yeah, it was just a complete drubbing. There's not really too much else to say about the series, to be honest. But yeah, the Bucks look like one of the strongest teams in the East as far as going down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, they turned a 5-1 gentleman sweep last year into a 4-0 sweep this year, which is insane. Like that kind of turnaround. I can't wait to see what that second round matchup of Milwaukee and Brooklyn is going to look like. But we'll move on to the next.
We'll get to that. We'll get to the Heat later.
Yeah, man,
they're out. We'll get to the spiciness later. But
right now, I just want to give a moment of silence to my fellow New York Knicks fans. It was a good season. It was full of surprises. We made it all the way to the 4th seed, got the first round, home court advantage. and it was nice while it lasted. But unfortunately, the Hawks and Nate McMillan had something else planned for us.
Yeah.
We put up a valiant effort, but the defense was honestly the biggest determining factor in the series. The Hawks really did a good job of cinching down on Julius Randle. They put a bunch of different guys on Randle, along with Kevin Hunter. No, DeAndre Hunter, sorry. And his defense on Randle, along with just the help defense that Atlanta was able to put on him anytime he made a move, really made for some challenging defensive situations that the Knicks just couldn't really get themselves out of. And Atlanta, by contrast, had all of their young talent on display. Their roster is loaded of shooters and guys who can make plays off the dribble. And it was really challenging for the Knicks to kind of show up and show out on the defensive end while also putting up a strong fight offensively. I think our limited offensive capabilities kind of got exposed. And Clint Capella in the paint just dominated. It wasn't even fair what he was able to do. Like Taj Gibson, Nerlens Noel wanted no parts of him when it came to rebounding. And unfortunately, Randle didn't show up in terms of the boxing out department. I saw several plays where people were just running into the paint, grabbing a rebound or offensive board, and he was right there. And he would look back and be kind of mad at the other guys. I'm like, bro, if you're literally right there, put your arms out, stick your butt out, extend yourself so that you can, allow for team rebounding. And that just was not happening. So I was disappointed, but it was a good season overall. And maybe you can talk about Ice Trey or whatever that cat's name
is. Yeah, Knicks fans was mad, but I love it with Trey. I love to see outside of the X's and O's of basketball. It was nice to see someone that embraced being the villain, embraced not being liked, because he was talking crazy during the series, from the first game, him saying it's real effing quiet in here after the Knicks fans were jeering him, him taunting, I want to say it was like Chris Tucker or somebody, saying like, what y'all gonna do, spit on me now? Like, and then, and even in the post, the him hitting that ridiculous three, even though the game was basically already over, and then taking a bow in Madison Square Garden, the first bow taken in Madison Square Garden since probably Reggie Miller. And then him talking to Reggie in the post game and basically saying like, yeah, we're basically on Broadway, and what happens on Broadway when the show is over. So Trey was dialed in, and it sets up like a really great rivalry for the Knicks going forward. Like if they're able to get the Hawks in the regular season, we'll talk about them a little bit more probably later in the podcast as far as what they do going forward. But yeah, it sets up a great rivalry with Trey. But he was able to do basically whatever he wanted during the entire series. They just couldn't stop him from getting into that top of the key free throw line area and then hitting those floaters.
Yeah.
And they weren't able to stop him from creating for his teammates. And it was just, he just put on a clinic, and the Knicks weren't able to get anyone that really was able to respond. Julius Randle, his numbers on the surface look good in terms of averaging 18 and 11, but he shot 30% from the field for the series. And then you have Derrick Rose, who was signed to be a backup point guard. And as great as Derrick has been in his role, they were entirely too dependent on him for their success. So he had a good series. I think he was 19 points a game with 5 assists, 47% from the field. But he's not always going to be able to give you that game to game because his body just at this point in his career won't let him. So he's kind of playing above himself during the series, and Julius Randle is going way below his expectations. So like you said last week's pod, I believe, the Knicks kind of have to wonder what they're going to do about Julius Randle and his contract. But we'll talk more about that as far as the teams going home. But what do you think about Suns Lakers?
Woo! Suns Lakers was a battle of attrition, essentially. Who could stay healthiest the longest? And it turned out it was the Suns. I think that when you have the Lakers with a fully healthy Anthony Davis's ability to perform on the court is worth the trade value that the Pelicans got for him. And that was apparent. When he was healthy and on the floor along with LeBron, he was unstoppable on both ends of the floor. He could dictate what you were going to do offensively against his defense. And then when he's aggressive in the low post and off the dribble and slashing, there's not much a defense can do. You know, DeAndre Ayton, yeah, he's big, but he has nothing for Davis. And so it was nice to see Davis when he was healthy. But once he went out, the Lakers lost their whole identity. And it just kind of shows how Father Time eventually catches up to everybody. LeBron's been able to carry bad teams for a long time, but he's getting long in the tooth, and it's kind of, you know, the injuries kind of pile up and stack on each other as time goes on, and you don't bounce back as quickly. And that's kind of just what it was. If Chris Paul was still out, maybe the Lakers could have had a chance. Maybe it could have gone to 7. But with Chris Paul at least being able to run the offense, not having to be super dynamic and relying on Devin Booker, and the Lakers defense just kind of maybe feeling sad for itself. I'm not sure, but the guys just didn't look motivated from top to bottom. It was just kind of disappointing to see how the lack of effort and continuity on both ends of the floor just kind of resulted in catastrophic failure for the Lakers. The last 2 games in particular were kind of pitiful.
Yeah, they were tough to watch. Yeah, I'm just not. I think we were both wrong about Knicks Hawks, and I think that we thought the Suns and the Lakers was going to be a little bit closer than it was. It's crazy how both teams that went to the finals in the bubbles last year had such, you know, pitiful performances in the first round. The Heat were obviously terrible, and the Lakers were lackluster. But I wonder how much fatigue has to do with their performances, because you have Bron basically, you know, playing on half an ankle out there. You could kind of see he was hesitant to bully people in the paint like he normally does. He had some moments, but he wasn't LeBron that we expect. So I hope that he can get healthy and move into next season being the LeBron that we saw the prior year when he won the championship with the Lakers in the bubble. Anthony Davis, I don't know. Like they said, the best ability is availability. And it's kind of been a thing with him over his career where he's had multiple injuries. And then sometimes even when he's out there, he will admit to not being as aggressive as he could in certain instances. But then when he decides that he wants to turn it on, he looks like one of the best 5 players in the league.
Yeah.
So it's a tough balance. I just hope that he can take this experience and push it into next season and hopefully have a better regular season and a better season. But I got to give some love to the Phoenix Suns. I think that they're hopefully if Chris Paul can get healthy, they're a dangerous team going forward. I think that Devin Booker has essentially arrived in the minds of most people now. He was 36-5 on almost 50, 40, 90 during the whole series. He cooked the Lakers from all 3 levels. He was getting to the paint whenever he wanted to. He was hitting from mid-range. He wasn't taking as many threes as I felt like he normally did, but when he was making them. So
yeah, game 6 was crazy. He had I think 40 by the 3rd quarter. Yeah. At some point during the night, he was like 7 of 8 from 3. I was like, this kid is just like he can't miss.
There's nothing they can do with him. Like, and he's a perfect example that like good stats, bad team guys don't exist. Like if someone is playing on a bad team and they're putting up big numbers, but they're also efficient, like if they're inefficient, I think you can make that argument. Like, yeah, they're just taking a bunch of shots. Like maybe like Anthony Edwards this year with the Timberwolves, even though he's a rookie and he's going to improve, like he's taking a lot of shots on a bad team, and those are like his efficiency isn't always greatest. But like with Devin Booker or a guy like Zach LaVine, like if they're have
another
like
way to shoehorn Zach LaVine into the
conversation. Of course. I don't know what you think this is. Like my team is out, so of course I'm gonna find a way to shoehorn one of our players in there. But they're both examples of that. Like Zach, up
Yeah.
until this year, had gotten a lot of flack about being a good stats, bad team guy. And Devin Booker is one of those guys that was getting that kind of reputation. But it just shows like if you put a good team around a player and you give them structure and you give them the ability to perform at their best, like that bad team part goes away. They're able to be a part of winning basketball. And Devin Booker is
Yeah.
showing that. So he's going to be a key for them going forward. DeAndre Ayton is going to be a key for them going forward as well, because he was 16 and 10, 80% from the field, which is bananas. And he was really good around the rim in terms of protecting it. So yeah, the Suns are a dangerous team, and the Lakers got some soul searching to do. But
what do you think about some of the other series? Philly, Washington, Boston, Brooklyn.
Well, let's just talk about those two. I feel like that's all that really needs. I wanted to talk about some of the teams involved in those series. Let's talk about some of the teams that lost. I wanted to talk about particularly the Blazers. They haven't gotten a lot of love from us on the podcast. I wanted to talk about them and what they do going forward. They just fired Terry Stotts as of this morning, I believe, or last night. So they're going to go in a different direction. I believe Chauncey Billups and Jason Kidd are the two top candidates for the head coaching position. Their defense this year was historically bad. And Dame had some incredible heroics over the course of that series, but they just still weren't able to win. He averaged 35 and 10 and still lost. And I can't imagine how that feels like as a player.
I watched that game. I watched Game 5 live.
Yeah.
And
he was incredible.
It was annoying because I was watching a terrible Lakers-Suns game where the Lakers are down by 30. And then I just see the ticker of Denver-Portland, and it was close. And then I was like, man, forget this Lakers. I was trying to find whichever app was showing this the Portland-Denver game, and then I finally found it, and I just saw Lillard going off.
Yeah.
And I saw how he fought tooth and nail. All those clutch shots. It was insane watching him hit that live. I was like, this kid this is impossible. It made no sense. Like, it's one thing to see the highlights, but to watch somebody just toy with the defense, take these long, ridiculous threes. I'm like, is he playing on rookie mode? Like, he's making it look too easy.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. It was incredible. It's one of the most incredible playoff performances I've ever seen. Like you saw Austin Rivers, that clip of Austin Rivers when he missed, he was like, thank God. because Dame was he was otherworldly. Like KD said, it was God mode. But the rest of his teammates were on some BS, to be honest. I think he was 17 for 24 from the field. The rest of the Blazers were 30 for 79. Dame scored 17 points in both overtimes. The rest of the Blazers scored 2. Dame was 6 for 8 in both overtimes, and the rest of the Blazers were 1 for 19. So it's tough. The Blazers have to they have to retool this offseason. I don't know if Nurkic is going to be back. He sounded like he was just done. Essentially, he was basically saying like, this is not the right situation. Like, I don't know if that indicates that he's hoping for a change and hoping to stay or hoping to leave. But yeah, they're changing the coach. But Dame has to have a better supporting cast around him because he's loyal and he wants to stay, but he's gonna waste his prime because the Blazers are plateauing each and every single season. Like I don't think there's ever been a season where, even when they made it to the Western Conference Finals, where anyone thought that they were a legitimate contender to win.
Yeah.
So they've got to figure it out because Dame is too transcendent of a player to be as underrated as he is, because the team success doesn't line up with the individual success that he has, to no fault of his own, obviously.
Yeah. Bottom line, the way he's been able to develop his 3-point shooting ability, the way that he puts pressure on the defense, it's just astounding at his size and at his position. Just a premier offensive player in the league, and just to see the lack from top down through the roster. That there's clearly no number 2 option on the team. You have a bunch of 3s and 4s. You have a dilapidated, unfortunately, Carmelo Anthony that cannot make shots in the clutch anymore.
I think
You guys
CJ is
just
a good number 2. I think you just might need
nah. So
another piece.
CJ is a good number 3, and he has a outstanding scoring ability, but when you have such a small backcourt, you get exposed on the defensive end. And so I think CJ actually coming off the bench and being a bench scorer slash a number 3 option would do really well for a Portland Trailblazers team. I think the Trailblazers with like a Paul George or Kawhi, or even someone who's like less of a, maybe even a Zach LaVine or like a Chris Middleton, somebody that can take pressure off of them in the backcourt in terms of defense and just give you a nice safety valve on offense would go well. Like even a Julius Randle on a Portland team would actually do well, just to offset some of the offensive burden that Lillard takes up.
Yeah.
But they have to do some soul searching. Norman Powell is a good piece, but he's not the answer. Yusuf Nurkic is a defensive kind of liability in some instances, and Covington missing some burger. He had some burger moments. Missed the layup, missed the dunk. It was like, bruh, come on. I was like, bro.
Yeah. Poor Bob Covington.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blazers got some soul searching to do. Celtics also another team shaking things up. Because even with Jaylen Brown healthy, I don't think that they were going to advance or even really give the Nets that much of a fight, to be honest. They need more pieces. They need to find a way to get out from under the Kemba contract because his knee is clearly not what it was. Charlotte seems like they knew something that we didn't as a collective. So they've got to figure out something with that. But they had a weird shakeup in terms of Brad Stevens moving out of the coaching position and moving into the GM position, and Danny Ainge stepping down. So I'll be interested to see who they pick as a head coach and what moves they're able to make. But yeah, the Celtics have had an interesting week between all the fan stuff, Kyrie getting flack for stepping on the leprechaun. It's been an interesting week in Boston in general, but I'm interested to see what they're going to do going forward.
Yeah, definitely. Likewise, Tatum is a true, budding superstar. Jaylen Brown, he's going to be good, and the rest of the roster just needs work. The East has become, it's not the East of 3 years ago. The top teams in the East now all are legitimate title contenders in their own right. And so if you're going to contend in the East, you need to build a solid dynamic roster, because that Celtics team was not getting past Milwaukee, was not getting past Brooklyn, was not getting past Philadelphia, and would have trouble against a team like the Hawks. So it's there's going to be some interesting moves going forward, and I can't wait to see what they do. Let's see what Brad Stevens got for us.
Yeah. Quickly before we move on to the second round, what do you want to see the Knicks do this summer?
The Knicks. This is the bad free agent class that's coming out. The top player who has a player option is obviously Kawhi Leonard, but after that, it's a steep drop off in talent. And so either the Knicks make a trade for someone like a Damian Lillard who seems unhappy, or they just kind of stay the course, continue to develop their talent, and really swing for the fences in the free agency class that's going to come out the year after. To be honest, there's just not enough talent to really.
You don't want Lonzo?
I mean, you can go for Lonzo. I don't know if he's the best long-term option, but at least it would be better than what we have now as far as a starting point guard. So yeah, I think Tibbs can set Lonzo straight. I would like to actually see the Knicks get Mike D'Antoni as an assistant coach to improve that offense. This is a random thought, but I think D'Antoni on offense and Tibbs on defense, that's a nice little combination.
Yeah, you're trying to pry him from the Nets.
Yeah, but I don't see how that's gonna happen. But right now, I think you sign Randall. I think you resign Rose. I think you try to committee. You maybe resign Robinson or trade him for some picks, depending on how things shake up. Because I think Robinson is replaceable. But I'm actually a little worried for next year because I don't know if we're going to get the same amount of contributions from all the players that we've had. And I think it's going to be real easy for the Knicks to underachieve next year if the roster isn't improved in a very tangible way. So it remains to be seen.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens with the good old New York Knickerbockers, but they definitely exceeded expectations this year. So they've got to continue that because it's very easy to exceed expectations one year and then meet or fall short of them the very next year. So they'll have to see. I mean, there's guys they could sign that would be valuable. Maybe a DeMar DeRozan, 20 points, 7 assists this year, having one of the better seasons of his career. So he could possibly be a good addition, but we'll have to see. Yeah. Lakers, another team that needs to do some soul searching going forward because they got to find some shooting around LeBron and AD. Otherwise, I'm really not sure what they do. They don't have many assets. I want to say one thing real quickly. Please stop photoshopping these players from smaller markets into jerseys for bigger market teams that don't have assets. Because I saw someone post a picture of Dame in a Lakers jersey saying, go get him. And I'm like, go get him with what?
That's hilarious.
You traded almost all your picks for Anthony Davis. Like who are you going to trade him for? This starts because, again, as a Bulls fan, I've seen entirely too many like Kuzma and second round pick for Zach LaVine trades. So I just want people to stop like hypothetically fleecing small market teams or mediocre teams for their top talent by offering peanuts. So just wanted to get that off my chest real quick. But the Lakers have some soul searching to do, and I have no idea what they're gonna do with their roster going forward. But like they need some better shooting around Bron and AD. Speaking of another LA team, we've got the Clippers and the Mavericks locked in probably one of the best series of the first round, to be honest, overall with the storylines, because Luka's having an all-time great performance in the first round, and the Clippers have so much at stake in this game 7. We're recording this on Saturday. They're playing tomorrow on Sunday, so this episode will be out Monday, so it'll be decided by then. But yeah, there's a lot on the table for the Clippers if they lose this game 7.
Certainly.
So it'll be interesting.
And it was surprising because the Claw came out yesterday. He had himself a fourth quarter to remember. And he put that boy Luka on skates and was doing whatever he wanted on offense. And it's interesting because you've heard all year, first of all, neither team has won a game on their home court during the series, which is just fascinating to be. There's been an erratic fourth quarter by the Clippers several times. And it was interesting to hear the TNT cast talk about what the Mavs needed to do or what the Clippers needed to do against the Mavs in order to win. And they pretty much did it. Shaq got it right. He said, you got to choose to say either we're going to let Luka ball out or take Luka away and make someone else on the team beat us. And that's what they did in the fourth quarter. Throughout most of the game, they were letting Luka kind of do his thing. And then with about 6 minutes left, they started to double team Luka and force the ball out of his hands, and no one else was making shots. Down the stretch, they would double team him. You know, he would kick it to Hardaway missed a shot. He would kick it to Porzingis would miss a shot or, do something silly. And it was really fascinating to see.
Kleba, all those guys.
Yeah, and Kawhi just put on the Jets and really had himself a Kobe moment. It was nasty what he was doing. Getting to his spot on the elbow, making his little short jumper, taking Luke off the dribble, hitting clutch threes, just nothing but net. Like looking like a straight up like Terminator. It was scary. And then he dropped 45 on the night. I was like, yo, who is this guy? Like, where were you like 3 games ago? You know what I mean?
He's had a great series. I mean, I wouldn't sleep on him this series. He's having an excellent series. I think I want to say he put up like 120 something points over the first 3 games. Yeah. So he had a substandard game last game, the game before this, but yeah, he's been great this whole series, but he definitely capped it with this game. He was unstoppable. Like when Kawhi is in that kind of zone, like there's not really much you can do with him. Like you said, he's draining threes. His mid-range shot is one of the most money mid-range shots I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. Or if he decides he wants to go to the cup, like once he puts that shoulder into somebody, like there's not really much they can do. Like it's tough, but yeah, there's so much at stake for this game 7. Luka needs help, man. If they're gonna have a chance to win, he needs help. Kristaps has been, I think he's averaging like 14 points and 4 rebounds for the series. Like he's making 30 mil this year, and he's just been missing in action, or he's been. I forget he's out there sometimes because he normally has like a good defensive impact around the rim.
Yeah, how is a 7'3" guy that can dribble and shoot MIA? That's befuddling to me.
Yeah, he's like, as a Bulls fan, like I heard Lowry is like there's a rumor he's like looking to try to get to Dallas, and it's like, but Kristaps is already there. Y'all are like the same player right now. What do you mean? A big man that's a solid shooter that's averaging around 14 a game, that also averages like 6 or less rebounds. That's literally the same player. Defensive deficiencies, it's the same guy. But
who do you have winning game 7? Because if we're going to go by the way the series is gone, the Mavs are clearly going to win because they're going to be the road team.
I mean, that's what the conventional wisdom would say as far as how the series is gone. But I honestly have no idea, man. It's gonna be tough, but I want Dallas to win because I want to see what chaos ensues if the Clippers lose with their roster. I want to see what happens. I want to see like who gets fired, who decides to switch teams. Like they're one of the most unlikable teams in the league. Yeah, because of how much like chest thumping they did when they first got together, outside of Kawhi. But like if I had to pick like with my heart, I would pick the Mavs because I've been rooting for them in the series. Yeah. But if I had to pick with my mind, I pick the Clippers.
If I picked with my mind, I would pick the Mavs because the Mavs have at least showed consistent fight, throughout the whole series. And if Kawhi isn't able to put together another fourth quarter like he did this last game, and Ty Lue kind of fumbles the ball in terms of his defensive strategy, then I don't see the Clippers being able to beat the Mavs. If the game is close, it remains to be seen because this last game was close and the Mavs did not have an answer for the defensive scheme that the Clippers were playing, and Kawhi was able to take the game over. But if he isn't able to be consistent in that regard, then I think the Mavs can do it. So it'll be, if the Clippers can do it, repeat exactly what happened, they're gonna win. But otherwise, I think the Mavs got it.
Yeah, it all depends on Luka. I mean, I think if Luka gets 40 or more, the Mavs probably win. If he has a game like he had last night, then they probably lose. He has to be incredibly offensively aggressive. He has to have an all-time great game. You need to get good contributions from like guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. And solid contributions from guys like Jalen Brunson and Kristaps. Otherwise I think the Clippers are going to get it because PG had a bad game, and I don't know if we're going to count on him having another one. So, because playoff P is in the building.
So let's